good morning, guys. This is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor. Great to be with you this morning. Coming live from San Antonio today. I'm back home after my little trip to Florida to see a patient. It was so good. Nice warm weather, but I'm back in San Antonio. It's good to be here today. We've got a great guest, Damon West. Going to explain more about that in a second on the show with us. I hope you're having a great day, guys. You know, if for any instance whatsoever, you're out there this morning, you're getting up, you don't feel too good, you've just tuned into the show, I want to tell you guys, today's going to be a great day. How do we know this? Stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself that. Today's going to be a great day. That's all you've got to do. And get up and go out and help somebody. Stop being selfish, guys. This ain't about you. This is about other people out there. So get up. There's people out there waiting for you to make their day. There's people out there waiting to pick up that first drink, on one word, one kind word, one pat on the back from you will change that completely. And this is what we need to look at. So think about that today, guys. I want to say something that you'll probably, I've said it before in the past, but you probably remember. Empowered people empower people. And that's it. Don't think you're not empowered. You are. I know all the people that listen to this podcast, all friends and colleagues of mine, professors, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, 12-step people, all them guys. You know what you can do today. You know how you can make a difference today. And that's what it's all about. You know, I love one day at a time. Not because I'm not drinking today. Are you kidding me? What's that all about? It's about how can I cram in today as many things as I can to help other people. That's what it's about. And Christmas is such an amazing time for me. The holidays are absolutely great because, you know, Rob Kelly Recovery Group, as you know, guys, some of you know, have been following me for a long time. If you're a one-parent family in recovery and you can't afford any Christmas presents this year for your child, must be in recovery or any sort of recovery program. If you can't afford a toy for your child, send me a message. We'll buy that toy, we'll wrap it up, we'll send it to you, and it will come from Santa Claus, Father Christmas, whatever you call it in England or UK. So that's the deal, guys. Always here to help. You know, we have practices around the world, and you can always come to us for help. This is what we're here for. That makes my day. You know, that absolutely makes my day when I can sit there and help somebody else. Listen, let me tell you something. I know what you're thinking already. You're thinking, who's on the show today, Dr. Rob? I know what you're thinking. I can tell. I can see you thinking that. Okay? Man, I don't say about this guy. You know, I didn't know too much about him, but I turned on the internet and I jumped on there and put his name in, and bam, it was all there. You know the story that we all talk about, the guy who got thrown in, to jail and then come out, and the quarterback, that guy with the guys that you think there is no way is he going to go down that route. Look at his family, look at him, college football player, and a bloody good one as well, by the way, guys. At amazing college, UT. So what I want you to do is I want you to sit back, I want you to relax, and I want you to listen to Damon West's story. We got loads of questions. It's going to be awesome, guys. Stick around. Damon will be back after this. Damon West is on the show. Good afternoon, good morning, guys, wherever you are. Good. Welcome, Damon. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Dr. Rob. Dude, first of all, I love your energy. I'm all about this positivity, this energy. And you came on, man, you like fire. Whoa. You came out there, and man, that's why I love your show. Here's the thing, though. When you're talking about the stuff you're talking about, you're speaking my language, man. This recovery stuff, this is one of the reasons why I want to do your show, because I get a chance to showcase the most important thing in my life, which is my program recovery. Because without it, I have nothing, man. I'll give everything away. Everything I've got in life, I'll give it away, man. Because that's what addicts do. We give it away, man. No one takes anything from us, right? Yeah. But what you talked about getting up to date and looking for people to help, Dr. Rob, and we'll get into this. The only prayer that I pray to my higher power every single day is the one I learned in prison when I got into a program recovery, a 12-step program recovery. It's the same prayer I pray to this day. I prayed it this morning. I get on my knees and I ask for two things. I say, hey, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you, and let me recognize it when I see it. And that's it, man. That's all I don't have something. I don't have a wish list of things I want or things I think I need. Because the deal is, if I take care of what my higher power puts in front of me, what needs me to do, then my higher power will take care of my needs too. Not my wants, but my needs. These are two different things. And my life has proven that day after day that my needs are constantly met. I've got the most amazing life in the world, not just because I'm not drinking today. That's huge. That's great. Or doing drugs. That's great. But because I'm useful, man. I am able to go out there and find people. Because I mean, if you don't find somebody in a day's time to help, you're not looking, man, or you don't want to see it because they're out there.
Exactly. I love it. I love your energy. I love your passion. This is what it's about. You know, alcohol took me to homelessness, as you probably know. You know, an Oxford graduate, a PhD, a fantastic family, 2 kids, drinking like crazy, all ended up stabbing my wife 3 times because she won't let me finish drinking, end up homeless on the streets, sleeping on benches and under bridges and stuff like that. That's me. That's what he took me. There's no doubt about it. He took me there. Boom, I'm the guy. How the hell do you go from where you've come from, Damon, and I've come from to where we are today? How does it happen? Explain to people who's listening how that happens.
The disease of addiction, man. The disease of addiction. Listen, man, addicts, we think differently. If you're an addict, you're dealing with this, addictions to anything. You think differently. You have a 3-part thought process. Here it is in a nutshell. You have a thought. Let's say the thought is to go out and have a drink or do a drug. You have that thought. That thought sits in your head and it roots and it becomes an obsession. That's the second part of the process. That obsession sits there in your mind and plays with it and plays with it and plays with it until it becomes physical. That's the third part. And once it becomes physical, then you're putting in, and you can't help it. You're obsessed with it. That's why we have a program of recovery, Dr. Rob. We have tools, and we have tools to work through these thoughts and these obsessions before they become physical. But before you and I got into a program of recovery, we had no idea what we're dealing with. And all we did was indulge those obsessions. We gave in to those obsessions because that's all you know when you're in your disease. And that's why having a program of recovery or a recovery community like this show is so vitally important to your success. Not only that, your success, but your spiritual and mental well-being.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I love that. So we're going to go back, and obviously we can't talk about incidents or anything like that because we never do, guys. I mean, we're always working on that. I'm working on it. Damon was working on it. Jennifer's working on it. But let's go back to when it all went wrong, Damon, and what you were feeling, where you were, and just that process of being dragged into that world that you never even seen before, and now you belong it. Now your name's in the hat with them guys.
Yeah, it's wild. I look back on it, and my life has been full of substance abuse. Ever since I was, when I was 10 years old, I got into my dad's beer for the first time, and I liked the way it felt. And then I would steal my mom's cigarettes, and then by the time I was 12, I was smoking pot. But the worst part about this is 2 things. One, I'm dealing with my disease of addiction at a very young age. I have no idea about that, though. But the other bad part is I've got a bad belief system, and belief systems tell us how to do things, And if you've got a bad one, it tells you repeatedly how to do something over and over again the wrong way. And here's the thing about belief systems, Dr. Rob, and you know this. A bad belief system, they're very hard to change because they become habitual. That's the way you think. You're locked into this way of thinking. And the longer you do it, the longer you hold on to it, the harder it is to get rid of. And the truth is, bad belief systems, they usually win out in the end. They're very hard to change a belief system. It usually takes something drastic to change it. In recovery, in addiction, we talk about a rock bottom moment. A rock bottom moment, if you really reach that rock bottom where you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, then that's usually what is a catalyst to change your belief system. But in my life, I've been able to be a functional drunk, a functional drug addict. And I went on from being, drinking and smoking a little pot. Then, now I'm doing drugs and doing like cocaine, ecstasy pills, you name it. When my college football career was over, due to injury, I got into heavier substance abuse. Graduated college in 1999. I moved to Washington, D.C. I'm working in Congress. I worked for a guy running for president. And when he dropped out of race in 2004, I moved back to Dallas to train to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world. UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. And it was at that job as a broker that another broker came up to me when I was sleeping one day, freaked out because I was sleeping on a job where they will fire you for sleeping. The markets are open. And he gave me meth for the first time. And this was a game changer, methamphetamine. I mean, it was something, look, I was a raging alcoholic, a raging coke addict. But this drug right here, it was something, it grabbed me immediately. And it took me no time, Dr. Rob, to give everything away. I gave away my job, my home, my car, my savings account, my family, my tethering to God, my sanity. And just like you, I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas. You know, when you were talking about living on the streets, man, I've been there. I know what it's like to sleep in an abandoned building or wake up in someone's car or live in a dope house with the dope houses, because that's what I was, as a dope fiend. And I started committing simple property crime to fund my addiction, breaking into storage units, breaking into cars. But eventually it escalated to home burglaries. And these home burglaries, they called them the Uptown burglaries. It's a very high profile case in Dallas. And these burglaries, you know, Dr. Rob, I didn't just break into people's houses and steal their property. I stole their sense of security. Yeah. And that's something they live with for the rest of their lives. But I got pulled. I got myself into a world where I went from hanging with the bad crowd to becoming the bad crowd. Yeah. Drugs and addiction and alcohol. I mean, it's all just, that's what I fuel my days with. And man, I get so in over my head, Dr. Rob, that it's not, here's, I don't know if you ever experienced this too, but I got addicted to the behaviors going on around me. Like, getting ready to prepare for a burglary. I mean, I got addicted to the whole idea of getting ready for it. The method and everything. You breaking in, casing a place, breaking into a place, that became an addictive thing too. And eventually,
that's interesting what you just said. Sorry to jump in. That is very interesting what you just said. We did some research, evidence-based research, some years ago, and we found out exactly what you said. The trip to the dealership. The dealer, the trip to the liquor store, the preparation for the burglary is more intoxicating than the drug itself. You know, the ritual of getting ready to do it, man, the whole ritual. Yes. And it's like, you know, it's that thought, the obsession, man. I'm obsessing all week over my neck. Now I'm obsessing over the dope, but then I've got the dope in my hand. I'm obsessing over the next burglary. And I want to get out there, because you become obsessed with this stuff. You become addicted to the ritual of it. And your brain is flooded with dopamines whenever you do this. You actually get yourself high thinking about getting high, or thinking about going out and committing the crime that goes with you. And I mean, this was a sick cycle that I was in. But it all came to a head. July 30th, 2008. I was sitting on this little, sitting in my little rundown apartment in Dallas. I've got my meth dealer sitting next to me on the couch. His name is Tex. And I'm sitting there smoking meth with Tex, and I'm passing the pipe back and forth. And I told Tex, I think the end is near. I think the cops are closing in on me. 10 days before this guy I've been doing all these burglaries with in Dallas, this guy named Dustin, had been picked up by the Dallas Police Department. So they got my partner in crime in custody. I know it's a matter of time before they get to me. And Dr. Rob, just as I passed the pipe back to Tex, the window shattered on my right. And tumbling across my living room floor is this little canister going end over end. And it's smoking on one side. Hell, I've seen this movie before. I know what's going down. I tried to get up out of that living room, and boom! The flashbang grenade goes off my face. Bright white light, loud noise, pulls me back on the couch. And when I came to, when I could see and hear again, this cop in full SWAT riot gear, he's got his boot on my chest, and the barrel of an assault rifle is digging in my eyeball, and this cop is screaming at me, "Don't move, don't move." And man, I blink at this guy, and I'm like, man, don't worry, don't worry. Cops start flooding my apartment, and one of these cops screams out, "We got him. We got the Uptown burglar." Wow. The Uptown burglar. It doesn't matter how many people's lives I can possibly impact with this story today, this message of hope and perseverance and being a coffee bean. I'll never escape that name, that moniker, the Uptown burglar. But, I tell people all the time that July 30th, 2008 wasn't just a day I was arrested. That was a day I was rescued, Dr. Rob. That's the day my higher power pulled me out of a situation I was not going to leave alive. No. And that is my date of sobriety. Woo. Not my date of recovery, by the way, but my date of sobriety. That was the day that I got sober. I never put another drink or a drug in because I got taken into sobriety at gunpoint. Man, people are riveted to this. I can see them just watching now. Phenomenal story. And I know there's loads left. Guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. But first of all, listen, we're not going to be able to do this in 30, 40 minutes, guys. We're going to stretch it out as long as we can get as much information as Damon. And I know that right now, this guy, absolutely amazing, is changing lives. Just listen to his story. I love his energy. I love the way he attacks it. I love the way he's out there. I'm not anonymous. Get out there, tell the story, be proud and loud. Jennifer's joined us, and she was a bit late, but I know all of you were asking where she was. She's here, guys. She'll be with us just after this commercial break. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. My name's Dr. Rob. This is the Recovery Channel podcast. We have Damon West on the show and Jennifer's joined us. Listen, guys, I know for a fact that you're going to get some serious stuff out of this because I was thinking during the break, we get a lot of people on. We got loads of people on, loads of big names to come, but when he mentioned the Uptown burglaries, I just went, holy shit. I remember that guy. I remember it. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you, my love?
Good morning, my love. I thought maybe that you thought I was never coming back again because we didn't talk for several days and you were gone.
No, you didn't do that to me. I was panicking about 1 minute. Well, I wasn't panicking. I knew that something was going out.
Damon, I live on a rural island and sometimes the power goes out and then we're like, so until I got my generator going again, I was late. So my sincere apologies. What I want you to know is that I was literally dreaming about you last night, what I was going to talk to you about, and then this happened. So my sincerest apologies.
No, that's okay, Jennifer. No, I'm just glad you were able to make it. And I mean, look, hey, stuff happens. It's okay, but I'm thrilled that you were preparing even in your sleep for this conversation today, because I think that this topic is so important that so many people need this, especially during the holiday times. That's a time when so many people go back out to the disease again.
Definitely. Every time this is it. It's Christmas. Let's get out there. It's Thanksgiving. Let's get out there. This is our lowest time, although we've got crazy.
Yes. And what I want you to know, Damon, is both of my kids were arrested during this time of the year. And as you spoke to the gun being pointed to your temple, that is same exact different. He was not the Uptown burglar, but being pointed in his temple and being arrested. It is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
And it was the first day of the rest of his life. So thank you so much for being on our show.
No, thank you for having me. I mean, this is I love this kind of forum. And Dr. Rob, you're right. We're not going to do this in 35 or 40 minutes. So let's just roll, man. Let's just have let's have a full 1 hour meeting, man. Let's go have a meeting and we'll even have a cup of coffee and pass the hat at the end, man. Let's do it.
Excellent. So the police have broke through the window and the SWAT team's there, or we call them SWAT. And you must have thought, obviously, known it was over. So you get arrested, blah, 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 all that great stuff. When was the time when you realized that I need to do something, not about the burglars or anything, but I need to do something because I probably can't come back from this?
I can tell you the date. Look, man, July 30, 2008 was the day that I was arrested. But I can tell you definitively, May 18th, 2009 was that day. My book, The Change Agent, I got it right. This thing right here is my autobiography. This memoir that I put out, they're making it into a movie right now. And I mean, it's going to be a hell of a Netflix limited series. But May 18th, 2009, I'm standing in front of a jury in Dallas County, Criminal District Court 7. This jury has just listened to 6 days. They've listened to 6 days of overwhelming evidence of my guilt, of the crime, of engaging in organized criminal activity. And look, 6 days is a long fucking trial in the state of Texas for crimes that are non-aggravated. No one was hurt. No one was ever home. I never saw my victims personally, man. No one was ever physically hurt. I'm not trying to downplay the crimes, but I'm trying to say that you're talking about property crimes, meth-related property crimes, while someone was actively seeking drugs, and this jury has listened to so much overwhelming evidence of my guilt that they went to deliberate after 6 days for 10 minutes. 10 fucking minutes, man. I don't know how much Law and Order y'all watch, but if a jury's gone for 10 minutes, they smoked your ass.
Yeah.
When I came back in that courtroom, that judge who hadn't smiled the entire trial, he's grinning from ear to ear. And this judge, who I used to know in the free world whenever we used to hang out and party in the same social circles, I knew him as Colonel Snipes. He was a former full-bird colonel in the U.S. Army, a former JAG prosecutor. Now he's the judge. He's Judge Mike Snipes in my case. And this guy and I never really saw eye to eye in the same social circles. I tried to get him recused from my case. This guy hadn't smiled the entire trial. Now he's grinning from ear to ear. And he said, Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 65 years. That is a life sentence, y'all. A jury gave me life on May 18th, 2009. Listen, and the only reason it took them 10 minutes to come up with a verdict, because they sent a note to the judge in the first couple minutes wanting to know if they could give me life without parole. Mm-hmm. Life without parole? Are you fucking serious, man? But that's the judge even told him, well, you can't give him life without parole, but you can give him life. And they did. They took him up on it. They gave me life that day, May 18, 2009. The book starts off with that date as a prologue because that chapter is called Rock Bottom. That was my rock bottom moment. That's when I knew something has to change, Damon, and that something is you. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the tools to do it, you know. And I'll tell you, the day I got into recovery, I was in prison. It was July of 2011, man. I'm in prison. Now, mind you, I've been locked up for 3 years now at this point. I'm living a life, you know, I'm paying the price for all the choices I've made in life around my addiction. And I've got a cellmate in prison on the life sentence building where I live with all the lifers. And this guy's a cocaine dealer. And all he does is get high every night doing coke. And man, look, I'm one of those guys, man. I've got my Bible out. In fact, I was reading my Bible one night. This guy's running around doing a bunch of blow in the set, a little 10 by 12, which, by the way, a 10 by 12 is the worst place to do a bunch of blow, man. There's only so much area you can clean. I mean, this is crazy. This guy would bounce off the walls. And so I'm looking at his little tray of cocaine, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, Damon, you used to like doing cocaine, and you know, you haven't done cocaine in a long time. Maybe you should do some coke too. And then I stopped. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting there. I got this Bible in my hands. I'm sitting there. My life is, you know, I've destroyed my life. I've destroyed my family's life. I've got victims all over the place. I've negatively impacted a ton of society, and I'm sitting there thinking about getting high again. That's when I knew I needed to do something else. This thing with this Bible wasn't working, you know. And I'm not knocking organized religion, but what I'm saying is, for us addicts, we need more. We need to be around other people in recovery, other people that have recovered from this. Because look, if you go to your priest, your pastor, your imam, you know, your rabbi, and you say, hey, look, you know, I've got these thoughts of these urges to drink and do drugs. You know what they're going to tell you to do? Go pray. Go pray. Just pray, and that'll take care of it. Yeah. Sometimes you need more than prayer, and I was at that point. So I put in a slip to request to go to an AA meeting in prison. They bring an AA meeting in every Wednesday morning in the chapel at the Mark Stiles Unit, one of the worst prisons in America, one of the hardest prisons in America to do time. And I can tell you, a little side note, I can tell you about hard prisons to do time because I got out of prison. We'll get into this. I made parole after 7 years and 3 months. I've been out since 2015. I went back and got my master's in criminal justice. And today I'm a professor at the University of Houston downtown. And I teach a class at University of Houston downtown called Prisons in America. Dude, I was in prison 5 years ago. I teach about prisons now. So, but I can tell you the Stiles Unit where I was is one of the toughest prisons in the country. So I put my slip of paper in, my I-60 request to get into AANA. And when they bring it back to me, Dr. Rob, Jennifer, they bring it back to me, and the slip of paper says, be at the chapel Wednesday morning at 7:30 for AA and NA. And I'm thinking to myself, because I know the numbers, I know that 80% of the people locked up have substance abuse issues, right? And so I'm looking at the numbers of the unit with the 3,000 people in the unit, 80% is 2,400 men. That means we're going to have a big meeting. Well, how can we have the meeting? I'm thinking to myself, I'm crazy, you know? I'm thinking, man, we can't do this in the chapel. The chapel's not big enough for this meeting. We're going to have to go to one of the rec yards. They're going to have to bring guards in from another unit. It's going to be like a Rolling Stones concert. Y'all, when I got to that chapel the next morning at 7:30 in the morning, there were 50 guys in this little bitty room, 50 out of 2,400 that decided they wanted to work on their disease of addiction and work on their program of recovery. I knew I was in the right room. And that's when I started getting the answers, man. That's when I got, when they first handed me a big book and say, hey, go read this. And I would devour that big book, the stories in the back, the first 100 or so pages where it talks about the program and how it works. Or one of the greatest chapters I read was We Agnostics, you know, of how the program works for people of all different faiths or no faith at all. That's when I knew I was in the right room. And that's when my program of recovery started. My sobriety date is different from my recovery date. And a lot of people are like that, you know. Because the day you get sober isn't always the first day that you get into a program of recovery. But a program of recovery to me means that I'm actively living this life in recovery. I have the tools to live this new life. And so that was for me when I got into it. That was when I realized my rock bottom moment was when I was sentenced to life in prison. And my life began in recovery after I was already in prison. But what's interesting about this story, though, Dr. Rob, is that I wasn't done. I was in prison, and I was thinking about getting high again. I wasn't done, man. I was still ready to go back out again. That's the disease of addiction. That's how powerful it is.
Wow. That is, let me just ask one question before Jen comes in. So just think of the psychological part of this. You sat in prison, someone offers you cocaine or it's there and you refuse it. everybody who's not alcoholic or addict would say, if you did that, why would you come out and still use? But it's a psychological part of the disease. The disease is not the drinking and the drugging. They've just got little to do with alcohol and addiction. It's the way the mind works. You know, it tells us like, oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, you know, I'm going to start. And all of a sudden now we're back out again and we're still not done. Crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. And one of the things that I heard recently and I thought was really profound was that anxiety is waiting for life to come in. And I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I'm concurring.
Oh. And so what I hear is that you had a life like full of anxiety. You were waiting for life to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and whenever you're in that environment, like, so, you know, the whole idea is that Dr. Rob had hit on this a while ago too, when he said that, you know, it's not the drinking and the drugs. That's a symptom of the problem. You know, what we're dealing with here, that's just a symptom. People that don't understand addiction and don't understand recovery, they think, well, why don't you just stop doing the drinking and the drug? You know, that's not the problem. The drinking and the drugs is not the problem. And it's like you said, Jennifer, to touch on your point, say anxiety. It's the things that you're carrying around with you, that baggage that you carry around in life, because you've never done a personal inventory. You know, you haven't kept your side of the street clean. And that filth that you have carrying around in your life, that's got to come out at some point. Either it's going to spill out into the street in front of everybody to see, or you're going to clean it yourself. But one way or another, that filth is coming out. That's that anxiety, you know? Yeah.
And that's that nervous stomach. That's that, you know, acting like a crazy man. The central nervous system is all jacked up. You know, it's like I often got told it was like, you know, jumping on a hot wire, because we're always just jumping on it. We can't relax. We can't do anything. So core beliefs are tied to neural pathways. So the core beliefs we have as a child with childhood trauma, because whenever there's alcoholism and addiction, there is always trauma. Often people go, well, I didn't have any trauma in my life. Really? Let's go back and have a look at that. Let me give you to Jen for 2 hours and we'll go back and sort that crap out. That's bullshit. So if the mind itself is born this way, which I believe it is, and it's remapped by birth, which I believe it is through trauma, by the time we take a drink and drug, it's all over. See, what a lot of people don't know is that hypothalamus at the back of the brain, just near the prehistoric brain, it's a fight or flight part of the brain. So it secretes into the brain when to run, when to stay, when to eat food, and when to drink water. That's why we never have to teach a baby how to eat. It's already got its hand down its mouth. It's hungry. Feed it. So if that's the case, how the hell can we fight against that? And here's the interesting part, guys. Do you know what it tells the alcoholic? To drink. So if your brain is telling you to drink, what sort of a chance? And that's what Damon's talking about, the entire psychic change, psychic of the mind. You know, a lot of people go, it's a psychic change, it's spiritual. That woman with the crystal ball. No, psychic, go back. Remember 1939, 1940s? Psychic is of the mind. Psychologist, psychiatrist, and change. It's just a change of mind, but it has to be entire because the neural pathways need to be rerouted. And that's very hard to do if you don't know what you're doing. And it's basically killing all the roads that you used to go down for self-sabotage and building new ones. That's the hard and interesting fact is you can't just stop. You can't just, you know, put the drink or drug down and go, as from today, I'm done. If you're a real alcoholic and addict, you cannot do that. And if you do, you're not one of us, guys. And God bless you. I wish I was one of us. You know, I wish I could just put it down and walk away. But there has to be a spiritual awakening and a psychic change. And when that happens, your DNA changes. So I'm really interested because you said something before. So you're out doing all this work. You're out helping others. You've found your real calling. So therefore, everything you've been through is worth it. Talk about what you do on racism.
So, and part of this has to go back to when I was in Dallas County Jail. My mother, right after the day I got sentenced, man, we'll go to rock bottom, May 18, 2009. My mom and my dad are given 5 minutes with me after the trial. I'm behind a bulletproof glass, and they can't touch me. The state owns me now, but my mom and my dad come in, and I didn't come from a broken home. My parents have been married 53 years, you know, so I've got every advantage and every privilege a person can have in life. And my mom is telling me, she's like, Damon, you know, you owe the state of Texas a debt. You're about to pay. You got hit with one hell of a bill. You're about to pay them a debt, but you owe your father and I a debt too. We gave you all the opportunity, love, and support to be anything you want to be in life. And this is how you repay us. She says, it's not going to work. So here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type gangs, because you're scared because you're the minority in there. She said, it's not going to work. You were never raised to see race, and you're not going to start now. And she said, you're not going to get any tattoos while you're in that prison. So, literally, I show people on sleeves, no tattoos, man. She said, no gangs, no tattoos. You come back as the man we raised, or do not come back at all. And I agree to this. But my mom's like, do you understand this debt, Damon? I'm like, yeah, Mom, I got it. But man, I'm a white middle-class guy in America. What do I know about the penitentiary, right? I've never been around the penitentiary in my sheltered life. And so I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail. And I'm asking all these guys that had been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I talk to, man, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're telling me the same thing. You have to get into a gang. You can't survive that. The gang is your family. One of the biggest lies ever told. But one of the things they told me that was true is that you're going to the worst part of the prison system where everybody in the building you live on has life. They call it the life sentence building. You are a lifer. Man, make your life easy, West, get into a gang. But there was this one guy in this pod of 64 men, this old black man named Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson, he's what you call a career criminal, y'all. He's been in and out of prison all of his life, probably in his 60s. I never got Jackson's age, but the most positive guy I've ever met. I always had a smile on his face. So one morning, Mr. Jackson comes up to me. He's got a cup of coffee in his hands and a smile on his face. And he said, West, I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies. Talking about you got to get into a gang. He said, do not listen to these fools. He said, you want to keep that promise you made to your parents and to yourself. He said, let me tell you about prison. So he said, the first thing you need to understand about prison is all about race. And he said, race runs the entire disgusting institution. When you walk into prison, he said, there's going to be a TV set in the day room. And in front of that TV set, there's going to be rows of benches. And he said, the first row you can't sit on. That's for the blacks. That's our row. He said, you'll get your head smashed in if you sit on that row. He said, the second row is for the Hispanics. Don't sit on their bench either. They'll smash your head in. He said, now the third row, if there's a third row, that's where the white folks sit. He said, if there's no third row, white folks sit on the floor. That's the way prison works. He said, you don't have the numbers in prison. Blacks have the numbers in prison. It's the exact opposite of the free world, he said. He said, because it's about race, when you get there, you've got to fight all the white gangs first. He said, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods. He said, you have to fight them first for your independence. You have to earn that from them. And he said, after that, then the black gangs are going to come after you because the white gangs are going to send the black gangs after you to get you with your own race. The Crips and the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, Mandingo Warriors. He said, you are fighting them all. He said, but if you survive all that, and you can survive all that, you'll earn the right to walk alone. And he told me something that day about life. That's a mantra that I've carried with me all this entire time, even today, when he told me, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. And that's a huge lesson in life. But when he's telling me that day in 2009, I'm freaked out, y'all. I'm like a deer in headlights. He's telling me about this terror I'm about to walk into. And that's when he said, let me break it down to you another way. He said, I want you to imagine prison like a pot of boiling water. And he said, anything we put in that pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and the pressure in that pot. He said, I'm going to put three things in this pot of boiling water we call prison. And let's watch how they change. He said, a carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So he said, first things first. He said, if I put a carrot in that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, what happens to the carrot? And I'm like, well, a carrot turns soft, Mr. Jackson. He said, that's right. He said, the carrot goes into the water hard, but the water, the prison, changes that hard carrot and turns it into a soft, mushy heap. The carrot, he said, got beat, he got robbed, he got raped, and he may have gotten killed. He said, you don't want to be the carrot. He said, what about the egg? And I said, well, the egg turns hard, Mr. Jackson, like a hard-boiled egg. And he said, that's right. He said, the egg is a shell that protects it physically, but inside that shell, that soft liquid core, his heart becomes hardened. He said, if your heart becomes hardened, you're incapable of giving or receiving love. And he said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love, well, now you've become institutionalized and you don't come back as someone your parents recognize because your eggshell will have swastikas tattooed all over it. And then he asked me, he said, what about the coffee bean? And man, I had no clue, y'all. I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in boiling water. And that's when Mr. Jackson shared with me one of the most important lessons I've ever learned in life. When he said, if I put a coffee bean in that same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you have to change the name of the water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, the smallest of these three things, he said, small like you, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot because the power was inside the coffee bean, just like the power is inside of you. And he said, everybody in life puts out energy, negative or positive. Whatever kind of energy you put out, you attract back. He explained the law of attraction to me. And so the last thing Mr. Jackson tells me before I go to this maximum security penitentiary, living hell, he tells me, go out there and go be a coffee bean. Man, 4 words, be a coffee bean. And so I get to prison, and I'm faced with all this. Jackson was spot on. The entire institution is predicated upon a race, man. And when I walk in the door, it's first at the white games. It took me 2 weeks to get to the white games. And y'all, I lost most of my fights. I probably got 36 fights and lost 75% of these fights. But I won because I kept showing up. And that's what Jackson said. Just keep showing up. And so after the white gangs, then it was the black gangs, sometimes more than one at a time. But eventually I won my independence. I won the right to walk alone. And that's how I walked through. And I became a coffee bean inside there. Now, we'll go in to how I became a coffee bean in a little bit, but I want to get to this question about race because I did my walk through prison where I was accepted by all the races. In fact, my nickname in prison was the mayor. You don't get to pick your nickname. Someone picks it for you. And someone one day said, man, look, you walk around this prison and everybody shakes your hands when you walk by. All the races, they said, you're the mayor of style. So I became Mayor West. That was my nickname in prison. And when I'm leaving prison, I make parole on November 16, 2015. And I'm walking out of prison, and I'm on parole for the rest of my life. I'm walking out, and I can see the gate, y'all. I can see this gate, and all I want to do is get on the other side of that gate, get out of there. But coming down the sidewalk is one of my favorite cellmates from prison, this guy named Sabor, this black man from Dallas named Sabor, black Muslim guy. And Sabor's going to be in prison for a long time. I put money in Sabor's books every month. I take his phone calls. This guy's literally like my brother, y'all. And so Sabor comes up on the sidewalk. It's very emotional. He's hugging me. And he's like, Damon, I'm so happy for you, so proud of you, man. He said, I got to ask you something, though. He said, when you get out of here, are you going to talk about what you saw in this place? Now, what he wants to know, am I going to talk about the stuff we talked about when we were cellmates, about when we'd stay up late and I'd listen to Sabor, a very intelligent, self-taught man in prison, when we would talk about racism, disparity in the system, social justice. He wanted to know, am I going to talk about that stuff out there where everybody can hear it? And I said, Sabor, man, you know me, man. You know I will, brother. And what he said to me became a call to action in my life because his words hit me right between the eyes when he looked at me and he said, good. Sometimes they lock up the right guy. Sometimes they lock up the right guy. Let me tell you something, man. Talking about race, we talk about racism in America, man. This is a real deal. And I promised Sabor I would do this. So here it is. Racism. You got to define, you have definitions. Words are important. Racism, in order for racism to exist, there has to be an imbalance of power. That means one race has to have so much more power over another race that race can write laws to affect the way other races live. They can affect where you live and what kind of schools you go to. And in America, white people have that power. That's why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism because it's something they have never experienced before. Now, when a white person comes up to me and says, hey, Damon, that person of color over there, they were being racist towards me or saying a racist thing. And I'm like, no, definitions are important. Let's help each other out. Let's check each other. Definitions are important. What you're describing is prejudice. And prejudice means to prejudge. And all races can be prejudiced against each other. That's not an exclusively white thing, but racism, that's a white thing. That's a purely white thing. Now, look, what gets on my nerves is people that come in here and tell me what the problem is and don't tell me a solution. I can't stand that. So I won't do that today. But what I will do is educate, man, because when I talk about racism, I want to take you inside of a prison and tell you that when you look at a population in a prison, half the population that looks back at you is black men. Black men make up 6.5% of our population in America is made up of black men. And 1 out of every 4 black men in America is in the criminal justice system. And I mean, you can't convince me that 6.5% of the population commits 50% of the crime because it's not true. But it's because we have these multiple criminal justice systems in America that why racism has become such a big racism. You don't have just one criminal justice system. You've got several. You've got a black one. You've got a white one. You've got a brown one. You've got a rich one. You've got a poor one. Hell, you've got one for cops. And it depends on who you are and where you fit in that spectrum is the kind of justice you can expect to receive in the United States of America if you get caught up in these criminal justice systems, right? And so the reason why I feel like I'm the right guy to talk about this is because as a white man, I've been in an environment where being white wasn't an advantage. I've lived in a society where I couldn't sit on a certain bench because of the color of my skin, or I got my face kicked in because of the color of my skin. So I understand racism on the most deepest level there is, right? And so I want to go around talking about this because I think I have one of the solutions to fixing it. And it's two-part. There's 2 reasons why white people don't get involved with trying to fix racism. 2 reasons. One is because they don't understand racism, they never experienced it. We talked about that. But the other one is this cancel culture out there. That cancel culture is real. And it's scary as hell if you're a white person to go around talking about it, because what if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing? You lose everything in the process. Well, guess what? I'm not worried about the cancel culture. I've got this unique background that I get a chance to go out there and talk about it. And I can tell you what I think is the solution. Because what I think white people need to do to start working on the problem of racist America is white people that look like us, have to get off the sidelines and get into the game, and get in the game with the intent to win this thing. Not run the clock out till the riots stop and the protests stop, but say, how do we fix this, and stand with our black and brown brothers and sisters and listen. That's the first thing white people need to start doing, is listen, absorbing what goes on with racism, because we don't understand it. The other thing white people are going to have to do is get out there and say, hey, you know what? I'm committed to this thing on an empathetic level to get this done. You've got to start. We've got to make their fight our fight. Now, that's what white people need to do. Here's what black people need to do. Black people, you want to stop this stuff? You want to help end racism in America? Then you need to invite white people into these conversations with grace. And when I say you invite someone to a conversation with grace, I'm saying that you bring someone into a conversation and you say, you know what? You may not say or do the right thing, and that's okay, because I'm going to help you get there. And when you invite someone in with the grace, you allow for mistakes, because until you get rid of that cancel culture out there, white people are not going to get involved with this fight. And you're never going to end racism in America until white people and black people and brown people get together on the grassroots level and go out and create that change. We live in the greatest country, I think, in the history of the world, but we are not living up to our ideals that we can be so much better. And that's what I promised Sabor I would do, is talk about racism.
So here's the problem we have right now. I've got 7 minutes before my next patient. We're not even 50% through this deal, right? So here's what I'm suggesting, guys, and guys listening at home, because everyone's going to start texting in now going, why did you stop it? Why did we need to do a part 2? You're the only person since the show's been running that we're going to need to do a part 2, because people need to hear this, people need to listen to this, and people need to divulge this and start acting this way. I was always wondering what the coffee bean meant.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute genius. The 3 things in the pot. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're patenting that, but I'm stealing that, because
have it, man. Hey, the more people that talk about the coffee bean, the more coffee beans are out there, and the more our society changes, man. You run with that, Dr. Rob. Run with it, Jennifer. Tell everybody about the coffee bean, man. Encourage them with the coffee bean.
I have a question, Dr. Rob, before you wrap up. I am so curious. Like, one of my favorite things is that when people take the shit that they've gone through and they recreate their life, they make the most beautiful cookies, the most beautiful cake from scratch, right? And that's what I hear you did. My children's drug addiction changed my life. It's why Dr. Rob and I are working together. It completely changed. I took it as an invitation for my life to personally change and do what I can. So what I want to know from you, Damon, is what is I don't believe you have an endpoint, but really deeply, not just drug addicts, like, what is it that you really want to change? Because there's something deeper here. Like, there's something, your suffering has created a boiling point, and something is really allowing itself to fully expand and explode. What is it for all of us human beings out here?
That's a great question, Jerry. And here's one of the things I'm going to let you in on a secret, because we're all talking about recovery. My book, The Change Agent, and in my life, when I go around speaking, people that are in recovery listen to my presentation. They're like, hey, that was like sitting through a meeting, an intense meeting. What I want to do is I want to empower people. And some of that, to get the message across to some people, sometimes you have to dress it up with the right story. The right messenger has to come along. And I believe that I have that amazing story. My higher power has given me this amazing story. It's contingent upon me, getting up every day and doing the next right thing. And this one day at a time stuff that I do in recovery. I mean, none of this stuff is guaranteed. I've got to sit there and attack these principles every day. But I want to empower people, Jennifer. I want to empower people and let them know what they're capable of. Because there's 2 things that I learned about adversity. All right. I learned these 2 things. 1, it's never as bad as I think it will be. And 2, I'm always capable of way more than I think I am. And what holds us back in life is fears, resentments, these things that we talk about in a 12-step program. Look, listen, I mean, you got to go out and do a business. They talk about it. A business that doesn't do a regular inventory will probably go broke, and you will too, spiritually and emotionally, if you don't do these personal. So my thing in life is I want to encourage people. I want to give them, I want to give them the same thing that I was given through a program of recovery, but I'm not calling it a program of recovery. I'm going out there telling them it's this message of motivation, hope, perseverance, and all that. But everything I talk about is principled in the program of recovery. It's principled in the concepts of recovery. You know, when I talk about extreme ownership, you know, we get far enough in the conversation. I talk about extreme ownership because if you don't own your mistakes, you know, what kind of life is that? We just sat through 4 years of someone that never owned a mistake that they made. It was insane. It was like living in a constant like Groundhog Day. Like, man, this guy never owns his mistakes, and no one calls him out on it. And look, I never get into politics. I'm not even talking about politics now. I'm talking about human nature and being a good human being, man. If you're wrong, own it. You say you're sorry. And these are the things I want to bring back because we are going so far away from that right now, Jennifer. Someone has to do it, or a lot of people have to do it. And I think that's what my life's purpose is.
I love it so much.
Excellent. I love it. Usually we ask at the end of the show, like, you know, what are you bringing? What's your thing? We're not going to do that today because we ain't finished yet. Part 2.
When do we do another show? When do we get part 2 done?
Well, do you have time tomorrow? Do you have time in an hour? Do you have time in 3 hours?
Yeah, but we can't book again. We don't run the books. We don't run the diaries, Damon. So the outreach girl will call you and set us something up for tomorrow, if that's okay.
I've got a call tomorrow. I've got a Zoom tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. I mean, what is your morning like before that? What about 8 o'clock in the morning Central? I'm in Texas.
We don't know because I only see what I have today. My guys run tomorrow and the day after. So I'll get Courtney to call you. She has the diary, or Janet to call you. She has the diary, and we're going to fit you in tomorrow. Guys, I'm desperately running out of time here for prep for my next patient. So I've got to say to Damon, he's going to be back tomorrow, guys. I will plaster it all over Facebook because I'm already getting messages right now of people saying, like, we need a part 2. So, guys, my apologies. We run out of time. We just didn't think it was going to be this good. So Damon's going to be back on the show tomorrow. We're going to do a special show tomorrow just to have Damon back on and get into some. I've got a list down here. It's not even finished. There's like still 100 questions.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Now, Damon, I want to say thank you so much indeed for coming on. And I just love what you do. I love what you're about. And just God bless you, man. You're just such an amazing guy. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you both for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for telling your story. I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait too. Thanks for allowing me to be useful today. That's the only thing I want every day is to be useful, and you've given me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Unbelievable. Guys, this was the Recovery Channel podcast with Dr. Rob Kelly, the addiction doctor, and Jennifer Lovely, and the amazing Damon West, standing out, living out loud so you can recover in silence if you wish. But we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.